Alright, so since Capital One came out with their Venture X offering earlier last year to compete with the Amex Platinum and the Chase Sapphire Reserve premium travel credit cards, Capital One has definitely become one of the more popular credit card issuers in the premium travel credit card space, and people are getting to know Capital One more as a credit card issuer in addition to being a traditional banking institution. I'm coming up on almost 6 years now since I first opened my Capital One Venture Rewards card. Over the many years that I've had the Venture Rewards card, I've been able to rack up a lot of rewards miles in the process and utilize them to go on trips and maximize them for other benefits. Now, what I want to do today is lay out the best ways to utilize and redeem those membership rewards miles with Capital One for the most and best value. Before we get into this, Capital One has a number of different travel credit card offerings, including the Venture X, the Venture, as well as the Spark Miles for Business that all allow you to accrue miles that are rewards on this platform with Capital One. Now I'm going to try to remember to say rewards miles and not points, because with Amex and other platforms, they count them as points, but with Capital One, they call them rewards miles, and so I'm going to try and be cognizant of that and make sure I don't make that mistake during this video. Now, everybody knows that Capital One has a very simple earning capacity with most of its travel card offerings, which include the Venture and the Venture X, where you get 2x unlimited points on absolutely everything, and you also get 5x points on travel booked through Capital One Travel. That's in addition to a number of other benefits that I got into in another video that you can check out here about the Capital One Venture Rewards card and some of the benefits that I enjoyed out of having the card for the last 5 or 6 years now. Now, with that being said, I want to set a benchmark for our rewards miles in terms of a target value we're trying to get out of a singular reward mile. As I touched on in another video, it's difficult to pinpoint the exact value of a singular point or a mile with any credit card issuer platform, but the best way to analyze which redemption methods are better than others is by pinning a specific target value for each mile, so we know whether or not each redemption is better or worse than our benchmark. For the purposes of this, we're going to call this 1 cent per mile. So what this means is that if we're getting a value of at least 1 cent per mile redeemed once we transfer that over to either another loyalty partner or another redemption method, that we're getting at least that 1 cent per mile, then we're in the green. Anything below that, if we're getting less than 1 cent per mile, we're going to call that a not so great redemption and something that you guys should probably try and avoid. So with Capital One Rewards, you have 9 primary methods in which you can redeem your miles for rewards. The options that you see that are available to you will include booking a trip through Capital One Travel, which is their native portal, converting your rewards to partner loyalty programs, covering travel purchases, redeeming your miles for experiences, purchasing gift cards using those rewards miles, redeeming for cash, which is basically cash back, redeeming with PayPal, which is basically covering PayPal purchases utilizing those rewards miles, shopping with Amazon, and then moving rewards, which is just transferring your rewards from one Capital One account to another if you have more than one. I'm going to say right off the bat that Capital One makes it very easy to maximize the value of your rewards miles just in the way that they lay out their website in terms of the rewards options. So you'll see here at the top row that it's book a trip, convert rewards, and cover travel purchases. These are definitely the top 3 ways to either get a standard redemption or get more than 1 cent per mile of value. We're just going to get it out of the way right now that the remaining 6 are not so great and definitely things you should try and avoid, but I'm going to cover them in terms of an analysis on what the actual cent per mile is, in case that's an option or a redemption you're trying to utilize, or if there's another offer you can apply to double stack those. So the first option I'm going to get into is booking a trip through Capital One Travel, which once again is their native travel portal that you can access through Capital One's own website. To do the analysis here, let's say we're taking a one-way trip from JFK to LAX on February 28th and for one traveler. We'll see here that the top option that they give us is $99 one way or 9,890 miles. If we do the math there, we're getting just about exactly 1 cent per mile, which does hit our benchmark of what we're targeting for the value of a singular mile with Capital One. Now, just to take a quick step back, I want to emphasize that Capital One Travel's portal on their native website is a great platform to use and actually price matches as one of the benefits of having both the Venture X, and the Spark Miles cards, which means that you can always count on Capital One Travel to have the best price available that matches what you could get if you booked with the airline directly. Now, this is obviously not an American Express video, but what I want to do is give you guys an idea of what it's like on other travel platforms to show you how good Capital One Travel actually is. So if we go to amextravel.com, and we look for the same flight from JFK to LAX on the 28th of February. If we're looking just at economy class, our first offering available on the Amex Travel website is a Delta flight for $185 one way. Our other option for this flight would be to pay with MR points, which would then be $18,542. Taking a look back at the Capital One Travel option for the first one available on their website, you'll see that it's nearly half the price of what's first available on Amex Travel, regardless of what you have to click through on the website to get to the same flight. If we then sort from lowest to highest on the Amex Travel portal, we'll see that the first option available is still $139 or 13,890 points, which is still much higher than the first option available with Capital One Travel. Again, one of the reasons I like Capital One's platform so much is the transparency they give you in terms of the pricing on their website. If we just cross-reference Google Flights to confirm that this first option available in the Capital One Travel Portal is indeed the best flight and the best price available, we'll see that yes, indeed it does match, that $99 one way with JetBlue is the service that's the best option for this flight. Again, this is the exact same that you'd be able to get on the JetBlue website. And so if it's not already clear, booking with Capital One Travel is definitely a good bet if you want the simplicity of utilizing a platform that you don't have to navigate to a different web page and you can use your native miles within the same platform. If I'm being honest, I would say that the best option for most people with regards to redeeming your Capital One miles is to use it on the Capital One Travel platform. This is by far the easiest way to do it, especially if you don't want to deal with transfer partners and calculating the loyalty membership value of those miles once they're transferred over to a loyalty partner of Capital One, and then booking a flight with a separate airline from a different loyalty program and possibly having to call the airline in the process to make that happen. By doing this through the Capital One Travel website, you don't have to deal with any fuel surcharges, anything above the standard award rate for a particular award program, and just all in all is a very easy way to utilize your miles for pretty good value. Now, just to cover all our bases, we're gonna have a look at hotels and do a use case there also, just to make sure that this is indeed the best price available regardless of where you book it. So let's say we're looking for a hotel in London from February 28th to March 1st, and let's say we've settled on the Intercontinental London Park Lane, which is an IHG hotel. It looks like it's $511 for that one night, or 51,000 miles. Once again, we'll see that the conversion is a 1 cent per mile value, which is again hitting our benchmark and matches exactly what you'd be paying for in terms of the value you'd be getting out of booking a flight with your Capital One Travel portal. Now, if we do a quick Google search for the exact same hotel in London and look for a room on that exact same date, we'll see that the price is actually a little bit lower than what it is on the Capital One Travel website. Now, the beauty, once again, of booking through Capital One Travel is the guarantee on the rates for the lowest hotel prices and flight prices. So to make that price adjustment, all you have to do is call Capital One Travel and they'll adjust either the flight or hotel price and respectively the price you need to pay in miles in order to book the same hotel or flight if it is lower on a platform outside of Capital One Travel. I think the price match guarantee is something that a lot of people don't bother with, and they just book whatever price is available on Capital One Travel or any travel portal that they use. But if it is something guaranteed by the card that you're paying for, I would highly recommend that you do take advantage of this so you can get the best price available for whatever date you're trying to travel. Now, moving on to the next method of redemption, which is converting your rewards and transferring those miles onto a partnership loyalty program. Now, this is where, generally speaking, you can get the most and maximum value out of your Capital One miles, but it is going to take a little bit of extra work. If we take a look here at Capital One's travel loyalty partnerships, the good majority of the loyalty programs that offer really good benefits are listed on here at a 1-to-1 point transfer value. That being said, there are a handful on this list that are less than 1 cent per mile in terms of transfer value, and that's just something to keep in mind when transferring your points to any of these loyalty programs. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I recorded this video a few days ago and I did the analysis and research on the different award charts for the standard award rates for different flights, depending on where you're traveling from, whether it's the United States to a US region 1 to, let's say, Europe or Asia or Africa or the Middle East. And it definitely gets a little bit tricky when you have to compare the rates that are offered on these standard redemption programs for specific flights. I'll tell you guys that the high value options from that research that I did are going to be Air Canada's Aeroplan, Avianca Life Miles, Etihad Guest, and Turkish Miles and Smiles. Now, the reason for these options that I just laid out is that they don't have fuel surcharges, or they don't transfer over the fuel surcharges if you book on a separate airline. So what I mean by this is that if you move your miles over from Capital One Travel to Air Canada's Aeroplan at a 1-to-1 mile transfer value, and then you decide to book a flight on United or another partner airline of Star Alliance that Air Canada is a part of, you're not gonna have to pay the fuel surcharges that otherwise you'd have to pay if you booked points using a different loyalty program that didn't offer that, or direct through the airline using their points or miles. Now, since I did all that research, I came across a website that actually condenses all that research into a singular click, which is awardhacker.com. This is not a sponsored video. I just came across this website and I thought it'd be useful to share with you guys because it cuts out a lot of the research you have to do in comparing the different award charts in order to book the best flight at the best price available, utilizing points or miles from whatever transfer partner you're trying to use. So for the purpose of this video, what I'm gonna do is look it up on awardhacker.com and look at the best value and then show you guys how to read it. and then do a cross-reference with the award charts that are available from those airline transfer loyalty partners to confirm that the price by miles is indeed accurate and you're getting the best value that you can. So we're gonna start off with our first use case of a domestic flight, let's say traveling within the continental US. So to minimize the amount of brain cells you've utilized to listen to this video, what I'm gonna do is the exact same use case as before, which is a flight from JFK to LAX. Now you'll see that on Award Hacker, when you look up a flight, there's no option for the date that you're traveling. Now the reason for this is that they're assuming you're using a loyalty program that has a standard award rate, which means that regardless of the date that you travel, it's going to cost the same amount of points or miles as long as there's availability on that flight. Now if it sounds like that's not real because you get an insanely good value, especially during peak travel seasons or when flights are really expensive, it's true because this is the best way to utilize your points, especially when you're booking travel during a peak travel season or when flights would normally be very expensive if you had to book them in cash. Now to explain to you guys how to read the results given from Award Hacker, basically the way this works is that they're going to sort it from lowest to highest in terms of the amount of miles you have to utilize to book this flight on a transfer partner. You'll see here on the left, the logo displayed is actually not the airline you're going to be traveling on, but rather the loyalty program that you have to utilize those miles with in order to book this flight. If we then go over to the right, we'll see that this is the exact flight that we're looking for and indicates whether or not we have a stop or not. And then this third column here, which shows operated by, is going to be actually the airline you're flying on or the alliance that has an airline that you're going to be booking that flight with. Now, let's just say we want to use this third option here, which is through Air Canada's Aeroplan with 12,500 miles on an economy ticket from JFK to LAX. The reason I didn't pick the first two is that they have this option here for via NY, which means that the flight you might be booking could possibly land in an LAX area airport that's not actually LAX. So we just want to focus on the ones that say LAX here. And it looks like it's operated by Star Alliance and others. So we're going to click this drop down, and it's going to give us the step-by-step on actually how to search for these tickets, transfer the miles, and then redeem them for these tickets. Now, if we click on step 1, it'll take us to Air Canada's Aeroplan, which is the method in which we're going to look for an available award ticket. But we want to keep in mind that it's operated by Star Alliance and more, so that includes Air Canada, but other Star Alliance partners, which include United Airlines, you can book those flights using those Aeroplan miles with Air Canada. So to explain what I mean, if we look at the flight reward chart for Air Canada's Aeroplan, we'll see that within North America, between 1,500 and 2,750 miles, it's going to be 12,500 points on partner airlines, which are any travel partners within the Star Alliance program. What this means is that if you transfer those Capital One miles over to Aeroplan, if you can find any flight on the Star Alliance that offers availability and the option to book with miles, you can use those Aeroplan miles to then book a flight, let's say with United, for exactly 12,500 miles, regardless of the date you're traveling on, as long as it's within this travel range of 15,000 to 2,750 miles. You'll see that step 2 here shows the different rewards programs for Amex, Chase, Marriott Bonvoy, and Capital One miles, and that you'll see it's a 1-to-1 transfer ratio from Capital One miles over to Air Canada's Aeroplan. Now, once you've actually found a flight on a partner that has this flight available with a seat that you can book, let's say it's on economy class on United on February 28th, that we see that it's 10,600 miles plus $5.60. You then want to transfer your miles over once you have indeed confirmed that that flight is available and it's for a price that you're trying to book it at. And then if you can't find it in Air Canada Aeroplan to book it directly, so let's say you can't find the United flight in Air Canada's platform, what you need to do is then call the airline, so in this case it would be Air Canada, to utilize those miles for redemption on a United flight. You'll then be able to book it over the phone and then you should be all set. So now let's have a look at an international use case traveling from New York JFK to London LHR. This is obviously a flight from the United States in North America to Europe, which in terms of the transfer loyalty programs, generally they classify by a continent, so North America to Europe or United States 1 to Europe, Asia, or Africa, or the Middle East. Now, if we plug this into Award Hacker, we'll see that our first option here is 10,000 miles on a flight operated with Delta Airlines booked through Virgin Atlantic's Flying Club miles. Now, if we click the drop down here on step 2 for transferring those miles, we'll see that we don't have an option here for Capital One. Now, if we go back to cross-reference our transfer awards loyalty programs on Capital One's website, we'll see that Virgin Red here is an option. Now, Virgin Red and Virgin Atlantic Flying Club, for whatever reason, are two separate loyalty programs, which you cannot use the same account information for both. Because this flight has to be booked with Virgin Atlantic Flying Club miles on Delta, The workaround to this is that you have to set up a Virgin Red account and then link your Virgin Atlantic Flying Club account once you have it open. Once the two are linked, then you'll see your Flying Club points reflected in your Virgin Red account. Any transfers into Virgin Red will then be available in your Flying Club account. So for this specific use case, that's just an extra step that you need to take to make sure that you transfer them to Virgin Red and then have it linked to Virgin Atlantic Flying Club to be able to book that flight with Delta. It's gonna be the same process as before with our domestic flight. You're gonna utilize Virgin Atlantic's Flying Club website to see if that flight is available. And if you can't book it directly on there with Delta, you're gonna have to call the airline at the phone number here so you can get that flight booked and you'll be on your way. So once again, with Award Hacker, it takes out a bit of the research that you need to do to calculate the award charts and what the award flights are that you can redeem the most value from with your Capital One miles. But as you just saw in this use case, sometimes they're not going to have Capital One listed as an available transfer partner, especially with Virgin Red and Virgin Atlantic Flying Club, as those two are separate programs. But it's very simple to do that workaround and make sure that they're linked so you can actually utilize those miles to then book that flight here that's listed as the best option. I would say, just to caveat this whole thing about utilizing Award Hacker to transfer points and miles and utilizing that as the platform, is that you want to cross-reference whatever the results are that Award Hacker gives you by looking at the loyalty program's actual award chart for those specific rates and checking the airline's native website to make sure that the price you're seeing here that you can book with points or miles is indeed better than the cash price or the miles that are native to that specific airline. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. If you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comment section below, especially if it's a specific use case. I can look into it myself and then give you guys an answer if I think that's the best option available. So from a high level, I would say that's what covers transferring your miles from Capital One Travel over to a loyalty program in order to maximize that benefit by redeeming your miles for more than a one-to-one point transfer, because once they're booked through the airline, you get a much cheaper price and a discount that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get if you had just booked it through Capital One Travel or the airline itself. Now, to quickly round out the rest of this list, our third option here is going to be covering our travel purchases with our Capital One Rewards miles. Now, if I click on this, I'll see that a recent purchase that I've made was $31.94 with Lyft, and we'll see that the miles needed to cover this purchase is $3,194. Once again, this is a standard redemption at a one-to-one rate, and so this does hit our benchmark value of 1 cent per mile. And I would say, especially if you consider that Capital One is unlimited 2x points on everything, compared to other credit card issuers for premium travel rewards credit cards that have a 1x points on most other purchases, you're earning at a faster rate with Capital One just across the board. So getting a 1 cent per mile value out of your rewards miles is actually not so bad with Capital One. The user interface for this is also super simple. Literally all I have to do is click the check mark here. If I want to cover this purchase, it's going to hit the exact amount we just saw. I'll have to just click continue and then confirm to actually deduct those miles from my available balance. You guys can ignore my available miles balance because I recently spent some, so it's looking a little skinny right now, but we're going to be racking up plenty of those this year, especially with 2x unlimited miles on everything. So the remaining 6 options here for redeeming your rewards miles are going to include redeeming for experiences, gift cards, cash, PayPal, Amazon, and transferring those rewards. I would say, generally speaking, redeeming for experiences can be a good option because it is fairly exclusive only to Capital One members. And from what I've seen on TikTok and other places, Capital One definitely knows how to throw a party. But from my experience, I haven't personally been able to get to any of these events before it's sold out in their portal. So just definitely make sure to check it often if there's something that's coming up that you think Capital One might host, so you can get a ticket for that with your miles. The next one we'll see here is getting gift cards with our Capital One Rewards miles. And I would definitely stray away from this one because the majority of these are going to be a 0.8 cent per mile redemption value, which is lower than our benchmark of 1 cent per mile that we're targeting. Now, of course, some of these options here you're going to see, like Xbox, are going to be a 1 cent per mile value redemption, so that makes it a somewhat good option. But generally speaking, I don't know anyone that uses their miles for gift cards because there's much better ways to use them, and so we're going to move on to the next one. Redeeming for cash is where a lot of people get caught up, and this one is not good. This is a 0.5 cent per mile value redemption, which makes it half of what our target benchmark is for a singular mile of value. Now you'll see if we click on this, we have 2 options. We can get a credit to this card, or we can get an actual check mailed to our address. If we hit either option, it's going to give us the same redemption value. Let's say we hit credit this card, we're going to see that if we do 1,000 miles, it's going to be equal to $5. So if we do the math there, once again, it's a 0.5 cent per mile value, which is not a redemption we want to get out of our hard-earned rewards miles. The next 2 here, redeeming with PayPal and shopping with Amazon, I would say don't use these options, especially if there's no added discount or offer added if you utilize your Capital One miles to pay for a specific purchase. The last one is just moving your miles between accounts, and so if you have more than one, let's say a business one and a personal one, you can move those miles at a one-to-one value to then utilize them and redeem them for something else once they've been transferred over. So there you guys have it. Those are the key ways you can utilize and redeem your Capital One rewards miles for the most and best value. And as we talked about, just to summarize, the best options are going to be booking trips through Capital One Travel, converting those rewards and utilizing Award Hacker to find those trips, and or covering travel purchases, since again, that is a 1 cent per mile redemption. I know in this video we only went through one domestic use case and one international use case for flights with your miles. So if you guys have more specific questions about a particular use case or a trip that you're trying to go on, definitely leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to help, because that's the whole point of this channel. I'm here to help you guys out and give you some tips that I wish I would have known when I first opened my Capital One Venture Rewards card to take those miles as far as possible. I hope everyone's year is off to a great start. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like down below if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.